I wanted to start this with like a quote or something, but I just can't bring myself to do it. It feels weird.
Just say that's so fetch.
No, see, yeah, that's exactly what I didn't want to do.
Just say, nah, I got nothing.
Yeah, so I guess I don't know. We'll get into it.
Great.
Welcome everyone to Afterthoughts. This is a podcast where we rewatch movies and we compare our first and second impressions, as well as discuss a related topic. Flubbed it up. My name is Joshua Kazemi, and I'm here with my co-host, Coleman Taylor.
That's me.
Shoot, I forgot to do your full name.
Oh, come on. You'll get used to it.
Sorry.
It's fine.
It's been a while. I'm out of habit.
I know. I understand.
Cole the Coleman Taylor Thomas.
I like how it's officially just become my full name as well, even though it's not really my full name.
Neither of them are your full name, you know? I didn't say your actual middle name, which we can keep as a secret.
Yeah.
Just for the allure of that mystery.
Yeah. Keep them coming back, hoping one day we'll finally reveal my middle name.
We'll slip up and it'll just come out.
Yep. But unfortunately, we'll get canceled like 2 seasons too early before the big reveal we had planned out. I'm just kidding.
All right, so today we're talking about Mean Girls. I think it's 2004, right? Yes, it is. Okay, 2004's Mean Girls. Boom.
Boom.
And you're going to take us through the plot of Mean Girls. Refresh our memory. What's this movie about?
All right, so there's this girl who moved from Africa and is now in America, and she's going to a public school now, having been homeschooled her entire life, and doesn't really know how to interact, so she makes some friends who are kind of portrayed as outcasts, I would say what they would claim themselves, and they tell her about all the different cliques, of course, classic high school movie, and one of the cliques is the Plastics, and there's clearly some beef between her new friend, can't remember her name, and Regina, the leader of the Plastics, essentially. And the Plastics are just this group of girls that think they're better than everyone else, essentially, and just go around making everyone feel bad about themselves is how they portray them. And so they have this crazy idea to have Lindsay Lohan's character, Katie, who it's spelled Cady, I will always think that is Caddy, to infiltrate the Plastic group and essentially just make fun of them and do awful things to them while pretending to be their friends. Lo and behold, she gets power hungry being a part of the Plastic group and starts losing relationships with her friends that she's trying to have this elaborate plan with, and ends up becoming kind of like the leader of this Plastics group. And then everything just kind of crashes down when everything falls apart, and all this secret burn book that they had, where they had all these them making fun of a bunch of people, and gets revealed, and pretty much everyone, well, I guess it's just the 4 of them have written in it, but it makes fun of pretty much everyone in the school or tells someone's secret, and everything just unravels from there. And that's pretty much the plot.
It is. Yep. I can't remember if I saw this in 2004, but I must have seen it if not in 2004, shortly after that. But it kind of became like a big sort of classic for me and my friends and all the people around me. It just seemed to be like this huge movie that everybody really liked. I don't ever recall anybody having anything negative to say about it. Everybody loved it. And I liked it too. I thought it was really funny, and it just got quoted a ton, and I really liked this movie initially. And I've always looked back at it as like a pretty fun movie. Did you see it when it first came out?
No, not when it first came out. I was not interested in the least. But as you said, it kind of did just become this classic around most of my friends who saw it, and they did quote it all the time. So eventually, I still think it took me like a year or two, maybe even a little longer than that, to actually finally go see it and see what everyone was talking about. And I thought it was funny at the time too, and it was a little deeper than I thought it would be too, I guess. And so I really enjoyed that about it. So that was my first initial impression, that it was much better than I expected it to be.
Mm-hmm. It's a smart comedy. I thought it was a smart comedy. It was a good story. Not amazing, but solid. And it definitely was more well-rounded than I thought it was going to be. And it's this funny movie with a story that doesn't feel like, I feel like it's sometimes in comedies, stories feel like a necessary evil. They sort of take away from the humor and they have to justify themselves as a movie. And so we divert laughs for plot stuff, and it's never as enjoyable as it could be or as it should be. But in this movie, the story itself is pretty funny, and it serves the movie well. So yeah, it's a well-rounded for sure.
One thing though is that one thing I do is that I feel like this came out around the same time as like Freaky Friday and other Lindsay Lohan movies, and if it didn't, oh well, but sometimes plot points of those mesh together, and there's just bits and pieces of this movie that I've just always forgotten. Like even famous quotes, like people would say, and like, what's that from? They'd be like, Mean Girls. I'm like, I don't remember that part at all. And had to like go back and see that part. And another thing is that I'm still pretty much into quotes, but I was like huge into quotes around middle school, high school, like quoting movies, just saying funny quotes from movies, and all the quotes I heard from this movie outside of the movie landed harder when like people were just randomly quoting it, and I thought it was funny then, and didn't land as hard in the movie, and I always thought that was funny. Like
that's interesting.
Like the fetch quote and the like, I just have a lot of feelings, and the one about the rifle. Can't remember exactly what he says, but all of those.
Oh, the kid.
Yep.
Yep.
Like people would quote those lines all the time, and I thought they were so funny. And then they were still funny in the movie, but I always was like, oh, it's not as funny as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, that's funny. I
always thought that was weird. But
I've always heard like stand-up tiny tangent. I've always heard stand-up comics say stuff like, nothing was ever funnier than it was when you were just in high school and nothing mattered and you were hanging out with your friends. That was when people were at their funniest.
That's true.
It's interesting. In the years since this movie has come out, I've seen it so many times with so many different groups of people and friends, and it's always held up for me in terms of laughs. I always have laughed at it every time and have considered it like a good, fun movie, like a reliable movie to watch in a group setting, because it's going to be fun and funny. But more and more over time, I've grown to like dislike the story a little bit more and more. Like there's a point where like the plot really does kick in hard, and it gets very dramatic, and it feels less funny and less fun and a little dark.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember like there was a couple of years ago, the last time I saw this movie was a couple of years ago until this week. And I remember at that point watching the movie feeling like, whoa, I don't remember it being sort of this tough to watch her transform.
Yeah.
And so that viewing sort of threw me off, and I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it this week.
Yeah. I'd only seen it just that once before when we last saw it, so I really only have just my initial first impression of that. It took a serious turn, but overall was still really funny, even if I admittedly think the quotes were funnier outside of the movie. It was still really funny overall, and I liked the story behind it and what the message they were trying to get across.
Mm-hmm.
That really sums up my first impression.
Yeah, I think that's about it for me. I definitely I don't think I've ever said like a negative thing about this movie in the past. I've always looked back at it like a really great, fun, smart comedy. And it was just that last viewing that sort of, made me question whether or not it was going to hold up on the podcast. Because things kind of changed when we put it under that light, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's like, we'll see. I'm curious.
Well, what did you think this last time?
This might be... I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this just right. This might be the most I've enjoyed it in a long time.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was great. I thought it was still really funny, and I've got specific things we can talk about, but I thought it was just as funny and just as fresh, maybe because I haven't seen it too recently. And when the plot does sort of kick in, I think what makes it tough to watch is also like a strength of the movie. The fact that it's tough to watch her change is like a testament to her performance and the writing. Like, it's a real transformation, and it's tough, and she pays for it. So yeah, I enjoyed the movie so much more than I have in the past couple years.
Well, that's awesome.
What did you think?
I still really enjoyed it, and I thought it was funny. I'd say the really only downside is I feel like the structure of the movie kind of does fall apart towards the end when it gets really serious. I don't know. There seemed to be like hitting plot points and going along just really well structured up until right when everything just falls apart. And I don't know. It kind of just takes this... I don't know. It just seems to lose some of the structure it had before and kind of just takes a few weird turns. But overall, I still thought it was really funny and still like the message that it's trying to portray. And I agree. It really is hard to watch her like transform into this person.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing I guess that I was holding on to for so long, like curious about whether or not it would hold up, was just I remember that negative feeling and thinking like, whoa, I don't... Like, I just always... When I first watched the movie, I always viewed it sort of with a light-hearted attitude and just thought, silly comedy, funny, smart, whatever. And then as I got older and kept rewatching it, was like, oh, there really is dramatic weight to this story. And so the last time I saw it, that's all I really was remembering, was more of that those dramatic moments. But now it sort of came back around and was like, that it serves the movie well. It does sort of, those darker moments inform what the movie is trying to say. And I still think it does it like, in terms of the whole movie, I think it's fast and brisk and funny. And I don't think it comes to a screeching halt to sort of get to those dark moments. It seems like a natural progression.
Yeah.
I think, but when you were talking about how maybe it does fall apart a little bit, my mind did go straight to like right after the crazy girl fight in the hallways. Like that moment, it does seem to like maybe the movie does slow down there.
Yeah.
And maybe a little even after that. The rest of the movie maybe goes at a slower pace to tie everything back up together. So that's an interesting point that you brought up.
I also think this movie's just really clever. I can't really explain it, but it's not just funny, it's clever humor. And I mean, I'm sure that's because of Tina Fey and the other comedians behind this movie who are really clever people, but
yeah,
I just think it's a really clever movie. One thing though is I wish the like high school movies would stop with the kind of high school cliques. I know this is 2004. Maybe they have lightened up. I don't know. But just like the cliques and like putting people in these boxes. Even like what one scene in particular, and I know this is going to be weird, but like, so when she's first trying to find a bunch of seats, she like, they're telling, no, don't sit there. No, don't sit there. And one of the seats she tries to sit in is like this kid who, and they're like, no, he farts a lot. Don't sit behind him. And then so she doesn't. And then at the end of the movie, when like they hate her at this point and she doesn't have any more seats, she like goes to sit behind him. And I thought it would have been really cool if like everyone was just really mean to this kid and he turned around and happened to be like this awesome guy. And that like showed her like all these mean things she said about these people, but really they're people behind him. But no, he's just a kid who's farting and it really is just a negative thing. And I was like, man, that would have been so more impactful if like he wasn't just this kid who was farting, I guess.
Yeah.
But little things like that, like just putting these people in these boxes. And like, because the message behind it is like, you're more than just like what your outward appearance shows. Like you're a person behind it, and I mean, among other things.
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, it would make sense maybe if the movie was very click heavy in the beginning to then say, you know, the clicks don't matter or they don't define you, and it does that to a certain extent. It's very brief at the end, but that's an interesting point. If they sort of like, if that was part of it. You know, because the click thing I've always found it interesting in high school movies because it seems exaggerated. And in this movie in particular, it seems exaggerated for comedic effect.
Right, yeah.
There's a lot of jokes in regards to the cliques. But I've always been fascinated by it because it's interesting to me because it's exaggerated and unrealistic. But it also kind of, that's the way high school sort of felt. Like it captures what high school felt and not necessarily what it was like.
Yeah.
And I've always been torn between whether or not I like the click thing. Definitely not anymore. I feel like you have to really try to reinvent it to do it now, but rewatching movies that have done it to death.
And you bring up a good point. Maybe not get rid of it entirely, but like we were just saying, maybe exaggerate it extreme up front, but then like show like what your message means behind it, and not just have it there just for comedic effect of exaggerating what high school felt like.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I still think this is a solid movie, really funny, with a good message.
Yeah.
It didn't lose, other than just losing some of the structure and some of the, like I mentioned, the like plot and I wish the message could have hit harder in those certain ways. Other than that, it pretty much holds exactly like it was when I first saw it.
Yeah, and I was surprised by how much I still laughed at it.
Yeah.
How funny it still really is. And like even like so there's a part in the movie, there's plenty of things in this movie that have sort of made their way into meme culture online, which I'm totally fine with. But there's a moment where like she's talking to the guy that she likes in the math class. I forget his name, but he asks her what day it is, and she says, or he asks her, and she says it's I forget the date. It's like November 8th or something. And so every year on that day, people post GIFs of that scene.
Really?
You know? And that still makes me laugh. Like every year I sort of forget it comes up, it makes me laugh. Yeah. Or anytime somebody says, "You go Glen Coco" online, it still makes me laugh.
Yeah.
Like I don't know why this movie is just like beloved.
I know.
And I like it a lot.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just something about it. Definitely like it better than Freaky Friday, if that.
Sure, yeah. I think this was after. This must have been after.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you think it's Lindsay Lohan's best movie?
That's what I was going to say. Yeah, I think that it is. Like, I remember I watched it with Molly and we were talking, and it was just like, everyone in the movie is really good. And it's a really funny performance from everyone. Mm-hmm. But what makes me sad is it feels like, in terms of comedy, it seems like all of these people's best roles, except for maybe like Tim Meadows or Tina Fey, who have gone on to do other things. But like as far as the leads, this seems like the best comedy that any of them have ever been in.
Yeah.
And maybe it's tough to live up to this sort of legacy that it has now, but yeah, that was sort of an interesting like realization.
Yeah, I think it's her best too. The only one I think I could go back to, maybe I don't remember Parent Trap at all. And I know she's just a little kid in it, but
it's a great movie, yeah.
But yeah, I think this is probably her best, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. And I do love the cast. I agree that I love everyone in this cast and think they all add. None of them feel really like filler.
Even like the sort of like secondary characters that just get like 2 or 3 lines throughout the movie, they're all really funny.
Yeah.
Like they filled every role to make sure each one had a moment and was very, very funny.
Yeah.
It was nice.
Well, you got anything else?
Tina Fey's great. She should write everything.
I agree. For some reason, I always forget that Amy Poehler's in this movie, though, and I feel bad about that. I guess because Tina Fey is just much more in it since she's the teacher, and Amy Poehler's just kind of like a mom in the background. But I don't know why. I always forget that.
I'm not sure if everybody knew who Amy Poehler was in 2004. Like, I don't think she was a household name. She was definitely on SNL, I think, at this point for maybe 3 years. But it's hard to gauge like where she was in popularity on that show at around the time this movie came out. So maybe because we grew up already knowing who Tina Fey was, but not necessarily Amy Poehler.
Yeah, quite possible.
It's just harder to remember. And yeah, it is a smaller role, but it's hilarious. It's so solid.
Oh yeah, it is.
Oh my gosh. And little things too, like they come home that day from school or whatever when we meet her character, and it's Wednesday and they're all wearing pink, and she is also wearing pink. I never realized that.
I know.
So funny. Oh my gosh.
So good.
What a movie.
I do love that both Tina Fey and Amy Poehler are in it. I think it adds that like they're both in it.
Have you seen Baby Mama?
No. Oh, yes. But it's been a very long time, and I don't remember pretty much any of it.
It's probably not as good as Mean Girls, but Baby Mama is great. Sisters is great. Both of them in those movies together. Still not as funny as Mean Girls, but it is always really nice to see them two together. They're really funny.
Yeah. Well, solid movie.
Yeah. Any other thoughts?
No other afterthoughts.
Nice. So let's read off the Twitter poll. It's the only real question I could have asked about this movie, and that is, what's the best line from the movie.
Yeah.
So, option number 1 is "Get in, loser, we're going shopping."
Nice.
There's that one. Number 2 is "You go, Glen Coco." The third one is "She doesn't even go here." And the fourth is "That's so fetch."
That's so fetch.
So, would you like to guess which one came in first?
Goodness, this is so hard. I feel like they're all so quoted all the time.
Yeah, all the time.
I want to say "You go, Glen Coco."
Yeah, that's close. That's the second one.
All right.
So here we go. Number 1 is "She doesn't even go here." It's 50% of the votes.
Yes, I'm glad that one.
"You go, Glen Coco" has 33%. And "Get in, loser" has 17%. My favorite thing about this poll is that "That's so fetch" got 0.
That was purposeful. No one wants to make fetch happen.
You stop trying to make fetch happen. I love it.
It's amazing. I wonder if someone legitimately like saw that and was like wanting to click it and was like, "Nope, we can't make fetch happen."
Do it. Can't do it. Yeah, it's just like this great Twitter collaboration. Everyone knew you don't vote for "That's so fetch."
That's so funny.
It's great. Oh man. All right. So I think that's it for Mean Girls. Should we move on to our topic time?
Let's do it.
This week we're trying something a little bit differently, something that we usually save for our bonus episodes. But this week we're going to talk about some movie news. And I think it's going to be fun. So let me see which one of these articles we should start out with. Let's try the new rumored Joker origin story that's happening over at DC. Before I even get into the details, what's your gut reaction? Do you want to see a Joker origin story?
Does it have the same actor?
It does not. It's not Jared Leto.
Okay. I'm interested. I think it could be good.
Oh,
I think that could be curious.
Okay.
To see a man, unless it's, I don't know. If it's as simple as someone falling into a vat of chemicals to become who he is, that's different. But to see a slow depravity of a man becoming the Joker, I think if you pull that off, it could be really cool.
That's interesting. I am more cautious than excited about it, because the thing I like about the Joker, and I guess this is mostly his Christopher Nolan interpretation, but it carries over in other different adaptations. But just I like the idea that no one's quite sure how he became the way he is. To me, that makes him more terrifying.
Yeah,
and it would be interesting if this movie sort of played it almost like an anthology series. Maybe there are 2 or 3 different threads, and it's 2 or 3 different versions of his story, and they're interwoven and connected, so you're not really sure which one is the real one.
Yeah.
That would be sort of interesting.
That would be cool.
One thing that makes the story interesting is that the big rumor is, I'm not 100% sure if it's been confirmed. So I don't feel comfortable saying it's been confirmed. But Todd Phillips, who directed the Hangover movies, is directing. But Martin Scorsese is producing.
Oh, that gives me so many. I don't know. That's conflicting, especially because Scorsese's only producing it. Because I feel like the movie I'm talking about, he could do something like that.
Yeah.
A man slowly becoming insane, and then something just turns him into the Joker and this insane clown, essentially. But then when you have someone that directs The Hangover's doing it, it's oh, no, that doesn't feel like it could be that movie.
I'm sure Todd Phillips is capable. He's made a lot of good movies, but it seems like this may be the wrong project to sort of stretch your wings and try something new,
Yeah.
And maybe there's something he's directed that I haven't seen that maybe more aligns with something like this. But from what I know him as, it's just old school and the Hangover movies, these silly comedies. Yeah. And I guess the Hangover did venture into some action comedy elements, but I would still say that this is probably a departure, to say the least.
For sure.
And another crazy fact about this whole story is that, so Jared Leto is not doing it, and I don't think he was even offered to do it because this is intentionally apart from the DCEU. And this is supposed to be its own story about the Joker. So he's been quoted saying like he's confused about the news of this movie coming out. Like he doesn't know what they're doing or why they're doing it. It just seems like a very bizarre thing to do at a time when you're trying to establish your own cinematic universe.
Yeah.
People are going to be confused.
It just points back to Flashpoint, right?
Yeah.
They're already starting a new one.
Yeah. It's craziness.
Well, I guess we'll have to see. I'm a little interested, but that is very strange. I agree that that's weird that you're having it outside of your already established universe.
Right. Which I guess sort of segues into similar Batman news. So I think we've mentioned it briefly on some other podcasts, but just to recap. So when Ben Affleck signed on to be Batman, he only signed on to be Batman, but there were strong rumors that because of his directing career that he was eventually going to direct another movie. And people also assumed that Batman was going to get his own movie. So that was quickly sort of rumored, and the rumor mill, it almost like the rumors became their own announcement. So once the dust finally settled and all this crazy talk, what came down to was that Ben Affleck is going to be in a solo Batman movie, but he's not directing it. He's not writing it. Matt Reeves is going to be the one who's directing it. He directed Cloverfield and lots of other interesting projects. But because of all these crazy rumors and some comments Matt Reeves made early on, people assumed he meant that this was also going to be apart from the DCEU. And so people kind of freaked out because they were like, what? Why do they keep doing this?
Yeah.
And people kind of were wondering, if it's apart from the DCEU, does that mean another actor is going to be cast as Batman? And so he went to Twitter. I guess this was like less than a month ago. He was on Twitter and was like, in my comments from a while back about not being part of the DCEU, I was talking about the Batman being a story specifically about Batman and not about others in the universe. So he just meant it's a standalone movie.
Yeah.
But come on, I don't think that's entirely the internet's fault. I think he said some confusing things to try to make sure people knew his movie was a standalone movie.
Maybe. I'd have to see the original quote.
What a mess.
That is a mess.
DC has.
I mean, I guess it's true, though. Batman so far in this universe has not had his own standalone movie. So
yeah,
I guess it's a thing to clarify, but I'm curious how he did clarify it, too. And it's confusing that there is one that's not in the DC EU. Is that how it?
Right. If there's one, then it makes sense that there could be others.
Especially Batman and the Joker, like Nemesis.
Yeah.
Nemesi, whatever that plural word is.
He's said a lot of interesting things about his Batman movie. Like, he's compared it to like it being closer to like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. I think he's flat out said he wants to try to make that detective movie that people have always wanted to see. And I mean, that sounds awesome. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, it's just because you love Batman as a detective. You always say that.
That's his superpower. It's his brain. That's the thing that puts him ahead of other people. That's the only thing about his character that's interesting, is that he can outsmart the strongest people in the universe. So yeah, I want to see him be a detective.
So yeah, I want to see
also
him
like
solve mysteries.
The last avenue that we haven't explored yet in terms of Batman movies. It's like the only thing we haven't seen is him solve like a mystery.
You just want that 1990s Batman cartoon scene where he's got a flashlight in his mouth and is going through an old file drawer detective work.
Mm-hmm. Yes, that's exactly what I want. I would like it if they just flat out adapted the Batman animated series into a feature film series, and maybe Ben Affleck is the Batman, but the original voice actor for the Batman voices him. Like when it's Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne, it's Ben Affleck. When he gets into the suit, you hear, I think it's David Conroy's voice.
That would be ridiculous.
I would love that. That'd be so cool. Because he's got the voice modulation thing anyway. So just give us that crisp Batman voice we've all come to know and love. I think that would be great.
It would definitely hit the nostalgia strings, so.
I don't even care.
I don't even care.
I don't care. I think the animated series celebrated its 25th anniversary earlier this month.
I see.
All right. I think that's it for the DC news. And we could veer off to the other side of the track and talk about some Disney Star Wars news.
Nice.
So, when the original trilogy was announced, they announced some directors. They announced JJ for 7. Rain, is it Johnston? The guy who directed Looper is doing the 8th movie. Mm-hmm. And Colin Trevorrow is doing the 9th movie. He directed Jurassic World.
Okay.
Now, people, since day one, people were like apprehensive of Colin Trevorrow. To bring up the rear, everyone just sort of envisioned it being another Return of the Jedi situation where the third one is the weak one. But it was recently announced that he will no longer be doing the 9th movie. And so they're looking for a new director to take over episode 9.
Are there any details on, like, if he quit or if he got fired or...
No, I mean, I think there's a lot of speculation. I'm not sure if there has been, like, a definitive reason that he has been out.
Yeah. I wonder if it's a good thing or a bad thing, though, that things like this keep happening to the Star Wars movies. Just, like, people coming and going, directors coming in and out.
It's interesting because a lot of these decisions have been made, but we haven't really seen the ramifications of them yet.
I know.
So we'll see how that creative decision... how that wave sort of ripples out in the next couple of movies. But people sort of are like kind of meanly rejoicing.
Yeah.
Because they weren't excited about Colin. Aww. And I get that. Jurassic World was not everybody's favorite movie. But at this point in time, I'm not really looking for Star Wars movies to be like the greatest movies ever. Like to me, they're just really fun and I want to have fun seeing them. So I was convinced that he could deliver at least a fun Star Wars movie.
I still don't think Jurassic World was the worst movie ever either.
Sure.
It was certainly fun the first time I saw it, at least.
Yeah, it's not one that's great for rewatching, and maybe that's a point to Star Wars, too. Star Wars is sort of, like, designed to be rewatched.
It's true.
Like, everyone loves to rewatch Star Wars, so maybe... who knows? He did a big, huge movie, and I think that is a credit. Like, not a ton of directors have done projects that big, that massive. Yeah. So that, to me, was a strength of Colin's. Like, he's already done this before, and hopefully he's learned from his past experience and can take the good from that experience and leave the bad behind. So it'll be interesting to see who they find to replace him. Yeah. A lot of people want Rain to do it, to just do 8 and 9 at this point, which, I'm not super excited about. Because that just seems difficult. Yeah. It could be another Joss Whedon Avengers 2 scenario, which I don't think anybody wants. So, yeah, it's kind of crazy what's going on.
Yeah. You love Avengers 2. What are you talking about?
I do really like Avengers 2, but I admit that it's not as good as the first one.
It's true.
I think I've admitted that from day one. I still enjoy it. Yeah. And I still have the Blu-ray on my shelf. Yeah. Because you can put those characters together any day, and I will sit back and enjoy.
Yeah. Well, I hope it's just that Disney's being extremely particular with this, like, franchise that's been given. Well, technically, they bought it, but they know that people treasure this series, and I hope that they're just, like, being very particular with who they want to direct these movies and just want to make sure they're everything everyone expects them to be or hopes they are. Mm-hmm. But we'll see.
We'll see.
Any other exciting news?
The Inhumans series premiered, and people just hate it. It's like universal negativity.
Good.
I have not seen it. But it doesn't look good. Like, the trailers for it look bad.
Yeah.
So, it's crazy. And I really, I want to know the backstory. Because Inhumans was supposed to be a film coming out in 2019. That was always what it was slated to be when it was announced. Mm-hmm. And there were big rumors that, that Vin Diesel, or was it The Rock? It's one of those two. One of those two bald, big dudes from Fast and
Huge,
Furious.
strong guys.
One of them was like rumored to be a part of Inhumans. I think it must have been Vin Diesel, because I think that was part of the whole mystery behind like why he accepted the Guardians of the Galaxy role, because Marvel was like, you can voice Groot and then you can come back and be an actual character in Inhumans.
Yeah.
So I think that was maybe the rumor. And then all of a sudden, another movie took the Inhumans slot, and the Inhumans never received another release date. So everyone just assumed that the project was dead. And then Inhumans was brought into the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. show. Like, there were characters in the show that were Inhumans. Oh, yeah. So everyone was really confused by it. And then they announced this show a little while back. So there's something going on there over at Marvel, and I'm curious to see like the journey that this property has gone on.
Yeah. I bet it's just behind the silly name.
You think it's a silly name?
Inhumans.
Yeah, it's not great. You know, it's because they can't use mutants.
I know.
Let's be real.
Which is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a bummer.
Oh well. I wouldn't have watched it even if it was good, so I don't care. I've watched one Marvel series and still like,
yeah,
which was Daredevil, and then
I
never watched season 2.
You gotta watch Jessica Jones.
I've heard, that's what you've said, and I've heard it from other people. We'll see.
If you watch Jessica Jones and you're not super into it, then like I think that's the best they have to offer you right now, and you can move on.
Yeah.
Because we haven't talked about the Defenders. I'll save that conversation for another point in time. But I've seen the Defenders, and yeah, I have a lot of things to say about it.
Wait, what's the Defenders?
The Netflix show with all four of them.
All four of them.
Cage, and everybody.
That's right. Keep our audience listening, waiting for more.
Exactly. My thoughts on the Defenders months later.
Months from now. Was that the show?
I think so.
All right.
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We really appreciate it. If you want to keep supporting the podcast, it'd be great if you could tweet out a link to the show, share it on Facebook, share it with some friends. That would be awesome. Get us in front of some new listeners. That would be nice. And if you want, you could leave us a review on iTunes. That's a great way for us to bump up in iTunes and get seen by more people. So that would be great. Next week, we're going to be talking about another movie. Hopefully it'll be in the description. The scheduling for the last couple of weeks has been a little wonky, but we'll get back on track. But it will be another movie, so tune in next week. Hit the subscribe
button. Not a book
button.
or a TV show or something.
No, never.
None of that.
Yeah, we will see y'all next week.
See y'all.